Welcome back, Shalligators. We'll file this under I for I told you so. Because I told you so. Ben Affleck is back together with Jennifer Lopez. Oh, called it. I called it. I hate to be smug and rub it in. No, I don't. This is what I live for. But we're not here just to rub it in. This is going to be 20 minutes of me going, I told you so, because, I mean, even though I could, I'm not going to. We're going to talk about exes. I'm going to talk about what's going on with these two, why they might be getting back together, like at least from Jennifer's side. I mean, I think we can all understand why Ben might want to date Jennifer Lopez, who is not even a human. She's like some sort of vampiric unicorn person feeding off the blood of the youthful and stealing it for herself. She is immortal, and I am terrified of her. I love her. We're going to talk about getting back together with your exes. Now, yeah, we've done a lot of videos on exes. We've talked about it with Tristan Thompson and blah, blah, blah. We talk about exes a lot, but that's because we all think about our exes a lot, if we're being honest. Did you know studies show that that's the #1 thing women fantasize about when they're, you know, we think about exes, right? Or like Chris Evans, literally only those two. And I don't mean celebrities, I mean Chris Evans specifically. But how do we know if it's right to rekindle a romance with like a long, long ago ex, maybe even a first love? And if you're in the throes of maybe breaking up with your first love or you've recently broken up, I'm going to give you some stuff that's going to make you feel a little bit better about the longevity of love and truly how long you do have to get someone back. We're going to cover it all, but before we get started, just want to remind you guys to come join me in Tulum. We are doing a Shalligator trip out to Mexico, June 27th to July 2nd with influencer travel company Trend 45. They plan fantastic trips that are like so glammy, and they also bring all these photographers so you can get a whole bunch of really cool content if you're trying to start a social media career, or if you just want to go on vacation and have some dope photos. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram at ShallonXO. I let you guys suggest this topic. You guys came up with so many good topics, and I'm going to try to like all mush them into one. So let's get into it. Jen and Ben. Like I said, I told you so. Why did I tell you so? Why? Well, when her and A-Rod broke up, well, first of all, A-Rod cheated on her with that creature from, what is it, Southern Charm? Jesus Christ. She looks like a low-rent Jessica Simpson. These are not compliments, okay? These are not compliments. But they was like, oh, we're working through it. And I said, no. Jen and A-Rod are going to stay together until she can control the narrative that she dumped him, or like we're better off as friends. It's precisely what happened. And then I said, you know what? Then she's going to be spotted with, I don't know, Ben Affleck, because Jennifer needs to be adored. Why? She's a narcissist. She is a very, very clear-cut narcissist. I'm a narcissist with a lowercase n. I can see you, boo. I can see you. But actually, one of my exes the other day, he was like, you're not a narcissist. You're too self-aware. You're just pompous and braggy. No, bombastic and pompous. I was like, okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay. But he's not wrong. Jennifer has to be adored. So she's going to go back to the well, as they say, to the person who probably adored her the most and from whom she got the most media attention. Because not only does she have to be adored in private, she has to be adored publicly. She constantly has to present this image of like, men want her, desirable, desirable. Jennifer, everyone wants you. Not even men. I want you. I would 100% have sex with you. I wouldn't know that I would even know how you would terrify me, because there's no way I could even be close to a body that perfect and know what I'm supposed to do with it. Like, it's like driving a Kia and then someone gives you a Lambo and you're like, it seems like I should know how to drive this. I actually have no idea where to put my hands. Okay? I barely even get into it. So it's just ironic that like she is the most beautiful woman in the world, and it's like, she's insecure about people wanting her. Damn, dude, what chance do the rest of us have? But that's a whole separate video topic. So it's not surprising to me that she has been spotted with Ben. What is surprising is where they have been spotted. Do you know where they are? Montana. Do you know who lives in Montana? I do. Why are they here? Are they here to shake my hand because I called this so hard? Are they following me? Why are they stalking me? Why did Kanye come here? Why did Jeffree Star come to Wyoming, which is uncomfortably close to me? So they have been, Ben and Jennifer have been out at the Big Sky Resort. Well, they were in Big Sky. I bet they were probably at Yellowstone Club because he has a house out there, and I'm sure it's in Yellowstone Club. It's like, you have to have like, I think a $3 million buy-in to even apply to buy a house at Yellowstone Club. Like Bill Gates has a house there. Tom and Giselle, like, but they have a no douchebags rule, and the Kardashians keep getting denied like 10 times. No, they won't let any of them in. It's fascinating. I know. I can't wait to go. Like, I really, really want to go because they have a caviar bar. They have like a happy hour and they have just like a bar of caviar. You know how I am with caviar. I could just put my whole face in there and just like motorboat a thing of beluga. I love it. But I digress. So they're in Montana. Let me tell you something. You come to Montana to fuck. I'm just saying it. You don't come to Montana to just bro out with your ex. Well, my ex came to visit and we did bro out. But I am not Jennifer Lopez and he's not Ben Affleck. By and large, if neither one of you lives in Montana, I'll say this, if neither one of you lives in Montana, you're like not like visiting someone, you are coming here for a romantic thing. There's not a ton to do out in Big Sky. If you're not skiing and it's like too warm to ski now, the snow is melted, you're just like sitting by the fire, going to the caviar bar, drinking Montana whiskey and moonshine, and smashing. That's what you're doing. Otherwise, you would be someplace that you could be out and about doing stuff. I also love that she did this on Mother's Day weekend. She's like, bye kids, like adios. I mean, can you blame her? I would ditch. It could be my wedding day. And if Ben Affleck was like, do you want to get together? I'm like, yes. Do you want to go like pick up trash on the side of the highway? I do, Ben, thank you. I'd be there in a heartbeat. So what's going on? Why is Jen doing this? Well, like we said, for attention, right? You know, she knows it's going to get her attention. It's going to stick it to A-Rod because even if he got back with an ex, it's like, well, who gives a shit, right? Like, who's he going to get back together with? Like Tory Burch or Madonna? Oh, big flex. Like, nobody cares. She gets back together with Ben. I wish you guys had been alive. So they broke up 17 years ago. They were the most beautiful and like at the time confusing couple in the world because she was very like Jenny from the block. She was really leaning into that like Boricua, like Bronx, whatever thing. And he was like Captain Suave, but also like the good old boy from Boston, Dunkin' fucking Donuts, you know? Like he was one of those. And so they had this like Hollywood glam to them, but this also like street smart undertone that I think kind of worked for them. And I mean, they were just everywhere. He was in her music videos. They were all over the place together. They were Brangelina before that even happened. And I preferred them. I thought Ben and Jen were like so much more interesting. So why am I bringing that up? Because that's why Jen's with him. I don't think she's dating Ben Affleck. She is dating who she was in 2003. She is dating the ghost of herself. She is dating nostalgia. Now, that's the worst case scenario. That's a very gloomy interpretation of all this. The positive interpretation is, you know what? They've come back together and all the things that were wrong, all the issues that had to be worked out, the, you know, running around, the wild oats, the need for attention, maybe someone wanted to have a baby and the other person didn't. All of that is no longer a factor. I tell you guys this story all the time. One of my mom's best friends, hi, Miss Sherry, if you're watching, she recently remarried her first husband, like high school sweetheart first husband. I think they got married when they were like 18 or something. It's the father of one of her children. And she married twice more after him. And yeah, they just got back together and got remarried and they're like happy as a clam. And it's just my favorite story in the world because it just goes to show how long life is. Life is so long. So you better like your life. But again, that's a whole separate video. We actually are going to do a video on how to feel alive and how to let go of fear of failure and how to be happy. Because I did ask you guys that on my Instagram. Like, do you feel like you're really living? And it was very 50-50. Some people said yes and some people said no. But we'll break all that down in a separate video. It's coming. But Jen's got to take priority. She would love that. The reason I'm saying that life is long is because you might be in the throes right now of losing your first love. Or maybe not even your first love, a love. Maybe it's circumstances. Maybe one of you had to move because of the pandemic. Maybe you're both graduating and going to separate schools or separate cities for your jobs. Maybe things just aren't working out right now. Maybe one of you really wants a baby and the other one doesn't. Maybe someone needs to finish dealing with their relationship that's in the past. Maybe someone's struggling with an addiction that they have to really go and take care of. It feels tragic when circumstances pull us apart. It's not just a heartbreak. It's tragedy a tragedian. Do you know tragedian is the inverse of comedian? Tragedian. It's like a person who inhabits the world of tragedy rather than comedian who inhabits the world of comedy. Do you not love the word tragedian? I love it. I just love words. I just geek out. I'm like a fisherman with a new lure. It's easy to feel like a star-crossed lover like Romeo and Juliet. But life really is long. Or maybe you're kind of at a lull and you're single and it's like, you know what? I've always been thinking about Ben. And then he popped up in my Facebook and it's like, I don't know, maybe I should give him a call. I went to a wedding this weekend in St. Louis. One of my best friends, one of my old roommates in New York, and we were young in our 20s and full of Adderall and at the Jersey Shore. And she married a boy she had a crush on in kindergarten and second grade. And he popped up in her Facebook or she popped up in his and they lived in the same town. He invited her for coffee and that's all she wrote. And true, at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like you don't really know who you are. You barely even know what sound a cow makes. So does that really foster, a romance later on? Yes and no. Because again, part of it's nostalgia that you're kind of like, you're relying on or you're attracted to. But there's something to be said about someone who knew you when. Someone who knew you at a time in your life that was developmental. It's tricky business dealing with an ex from a long time ago. Because on one hand, time changes people. But sort of. You know what we always say? Time heals nothing. It's what you do with the time that matters. If this person is still in the same town, the same house, working the same job, going to the same bars, wearing the same clothes, listening to the same music, you can always tell the best year of a man's life, that's the year he stops buying clothes. I'm not even kidding. Then chances are everything else about him is probably more or less the same. When people change emotionally, they naturally change on the outside too. Their dress changed, their bodies changed, they move to different places, they travel, they're eating sushi now and they wouldn't when they were 15. You can see it not just in here, you see it in a 360 way. If you don't, that's a pretty good indication that they might kind of still be that same person. But mostly people do change. People grow up and they grow up slow. Well, men grow up slow. One thing I've realized, like women grow because we genuinely want to. We force ourselves to grow. We seek out opportunities, people, places, things, nouns, that force us to grow. Guys don't. Guys grow many times through trauma. They grow because they're forced to, because a girl left them, because a relationship collapsed, because they got fired, because their mom kicked them out of the house. Not all men, but like a lot. That's why guys have the one who got away and girls don't. We don't. Because guys are stupid and they don't fuck up until the love of their life walks out the door and they're like, oh man. This is great if you were the love of that life because, if you think he's lived in myth and infamy, you are like a god among women. And so you can sweep back in his life and absolutely grab him by the throat and pray on that. We can cover this more in Evil Week 2, which is coming. So it could be that he just needed time to grow up. And this is so tough for women because again, this is why guys have the one that got away because we already are just so much more mature. And again, we are always drawn to things that mature us more, that level us up. Even from who we follow on Instagram, like Fitspo and fashion inspirations, we want to get better. If you are a fan of this channel, you want to be your best. You want to be better, right? We are growers and doers. We're not talkers and thinkers and fucking dreamers. We think and we dream, but with actionability attached to it. Some people aren't. Or it takes guys a minute to get there. They might be kind of far behind us. And that's why I think every woman I know has the, I had to leave guy. I loved him. I had to leave. I recently had to cut off someone I care very much about because I can't fix you and I can't save you. Does this sound familiar? Have I said this before in videos? Yeah, that's because I've had to do it multiple times because I'm weak and I keep going back and being like, let me try. No, I can help. I can save you. And it's like, he'll pull me in and I'll think that things are different and they're not. And it's like, I can't keep doing this. And I've had to make peace with the fact that I will be the one that got away for him. And by the time he grows the fuck up, shit, dude, I could be in a nursing home. I'm older. Who even knows? I could have 2 broken hips. Not. But you have to let people mature. Like we've said, you cannot force ripen an avocado, let alone a whole person. You just can't. And if you encounter an unripe avocado, you got to make guacamole that night because people are coming over. You don't like force the knife into it and like gag down this horrible, bitter, hard thing. You simply select a different avocado because there's plenty. Okay? You don't make yourself sick. We got to do this with men. And it's tragic. Again, it feels tragic to have to walk away from someone because love isn't enough. Love is like 15% of the equation. It really is. So if this is where you are right now and you're like, he's the love of my life, he's my first love, life is so long. And the way you feel now, I promise you, you will not feel like this forever. Both good and bad. I mean, there have been people I hated with the fire of 1,000 suns. Guys, I just despised that. I'm like, I will never forgive you for this. I will never be able to see past this. I will never be able to look at you as anything other than a monster. Things change. I change. They change. Realization happens. Growth happens. I'm not saying this because I want you to hold space in your life for a douchebag who might not come around. Or if he comes around, that might be 2 years, not 2 weeks. And that's the shitty part. We never know when an avocado is going to be ripe. It's like bad, 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 perfect for 2 hours, bad, 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 rotten. Sometimes people are like that too. But sometimes people do change. So look, when I say nothing stays the same, I remember when I first moved to New York and my first job as an editor, I was an editor at FHM, this men's magazine. And my boss, and he was like 23, we're both like 23, yet he was like my boss. And we were talking about tattoos and like whether people had tattoos. And he's like, no, I wouldn't. You know why? Chain wallets. And I'm like, chain wallets? He's like, you know what chain wallet is? They like clip to like your belt loop and then they go in the back and your wallet sits in your back pocket. Like guys wear them at like Nickelback concerts. So douchey. They're such a red flag for me. There always comes like a soul patch and like a flat brim hat. And they're always at a gas station. He's like, when I was in middle school, I wore a chain wallet and I thought this is the greatest invention of my life. I'm going to wear a chain wallet forever, forever. If you had asked me then, I would have said with 100% certainty, I would wear a chain wallet forever. He's like, now if you had a gun to my head, I wouldn't wear one. That's how I feel about tattoos. Like I could love it and know I'm going to love it forever. Things change. And I know he wasn't intending to give me like a very, very valuable life lesson about love, but that stuck with me. It's the chain wallet effect. It's the chain wallet syndrome. Sometimes people who I was like, I will simply love you forever. Like my Hurt Locker, I just recently saw and got over. The idea that I would one day be able to look at Will and be like, I don't love you. I'm not even attracted to you. It was inconceivable. If you told me I would colonize life on Jupiter, I'd be like, that does sound like me. I would believe that before this. Same with like, I will never want to date that guy. I'll never want to date that guy. Like a guy comes to a party and your friend's like, oh, this is Austin. You're like, hello. By the end of the night, you're making out. Things change. They change on the micro. They change on the macro. So if you're going through this thing with this breakup, it's like, we're never going to get back together. You don't know that. Do not stop living your life. Go out there and gather data points, but truly you don't know. And as hot-headed and honestly evil as I am, I really try to have good breakups with everyone I date, even the ones who wrong me. For one, like it's so much crueler to be really sweet to someone who has wronged you, like because then they just feel shame forever and their lives go nowhere. It's amazing. It's a long con. But also it leaves the door open. You know, if we don't end on this horrible, hateful note, things change, they grow up, they realize things, I change, we meet in the middle, logistics change. You just never know. Well, let's say you are revisiting something. Let's say that's where you are. Someone's been on your mind, they pop up in your feed, you're like, let's talk about that. So if you're considering getting back together with an ex, like a long time ago ex, you're probably going through some debate in your mind. Oh my gosh, that's so silly. We broke up for a reason. I mean, I can't just like go back in the past. I should be moving forward. True. That's many times the healthy answer, but not always. It depends on why you broke up. It could have been the timing was wrong. There's the reason the phrase exists. Timing is everything. It truly is. If you look at Ben and Jen, let's say, for example, an issue was someone wanted to settle down and the other person didn't. Someone was ready for kids and the other person wasn't. Well, now they both have 3 kids or 2 kids. They both have a fucking ton of kids, right? So that's kind of off the table. She's too old to have kids anyway. Maybe someone wanted to focus on their career and the other person didn't. Okay, maybe that's already asked and answered. Maybe somebody wanted to live that big city life and they wanted to stay in their small town. That changes too. If the things that pulled you apart were logistical, you have a very good shot of getting back together, because the things that you connected over, communication, sense of humor, shared values, how you recreate. And we've covered all this in a video on the 4 pillars of compatibility, right? So go back and watch that. I highly encourage you, because, we talked about do opposites attract. I think we talked about it with Kourtney Kardashian and Travis Barker. I always want to say Travis Scott. Ugh, I don't want anything to do with either one of them. But if you have those pillars in common, the factors that tore you apart in the first place might not be factors at all anymore. But you need to be honest with yourself about truly what did break you up. Was it a fundamental lack of communication or respect, or a substance abuse issue, a mental health issue that they weren't treating? Was it his family was meddlesome? Religion was an issue. If these things have not changed, and some of them might not ever change, you need to walk in the light of the truth on that, because you can't date nostalgia. I always say you can't date potential. You have to date a snapshot of exactly who someone is today. So if you can look at this person and be like, they're just as funny as I remember, they're just as thoughtful and caring. And yeah, their mom was a bitch back then, but she's like 85. I don't have to deal with her ass anymore. Or like he's managed to pull away from her. Okay, he set up healthy boundaries. Great. He's gotten that like stupid weed addiction under control. He doesn't even smoke weed anymore. Are you being honest with yourself? Or are you falling victim to nostalgia? Someone said once, nostalgia is the most dangerous emotion. And it is so true, because our memory is like a game of telephone, right? How a person was gets filtered through a million different permutations of our own mind, like a game of telephone, and comes out the other end completely different than the reality. And sometimes it comes out better. It was just so wonderful. It was so hot. I talked about this in a Flays video about going and getting over like this ex that Hurt Locker is too mild a term. I was obsessed with him for years. And I saw him in real life and I was like, oh my God, you're just like a regular person. You're like a regular man. I would not talk to you. I'm so sorry. Okay. I was shocked because he had lived in myth and infamy in my mind for years. And to see the reality of it, I was like, oh. So ask yourself if nostalgia is a factor. And if it is, why? Are you being like Jennifer Lopez? We always want to compare ourselves to Jennifer Lopez, but perhaps not in this way, where it's not so much you want to date that person again, you want to go back to that time. This is part of a Hurt Locker imprint, where it's like either you imprint on someone during a great time in your life, you remember, like I had so much like nostalgic love for this boy I met when I was, one of the summers I was studying abroad in high school. I studied abroad every summer in the south of France. And Vincent, oh, je t'aime Vincent. And I was just like, oh, Vincent. And I thought about him for years and years. It's not because he was so fantastic, because he was not. He looks a bit like an egg. It's because I just loved that time in my life. And he was like a touchstone of that. He was like a thing I could grab onto and seemingly hold on to that time. Same with the guy I met studying abroad when I lived in Italy. It's like, oh, Gabrielle, just whatever. He was also not cute. Doesn't matter. So if that's the case, ask yourself how you can recreate those circumstances without this person, without revisiting this person who you cannot bring them back into your life if they have an agenda, right? You can't have a baby to save the marriage. You can't have a romance to go back in time. A human man is not a time machine. Half the time, they're barely even men at all. They're just sort of these creatures with wieners. Okay. So if that is the case, be honest with yourself. If Jennifer Lopez is like, I just wish I could go back to 2003. Why? Why? Did you feel sexier then? Did you feel free because you didn't have kids? Maybe you felt like the world hadn't pigeonholed you into something and you could like take any role in any movie, even if it was indie and even if it was bad. Like maybe you had no fear back then. Maybe it was the opposite. Maybe you had a lot of stability and your family was around you and you had anonymity. Think of what it was. If you don't know, what is this man going to save me from? If I was back together with Ben, I would no longer feel blank. What is the answer to that question? Fill in that blank. Make it this emotional Mad Lib, right? Or if I was back together with Ben, suddenly would no longer be a concern to me. Being beautiful, having enough attention, finding a partner commensurate with my work ethic. And that's positive. It's like if I was with this person, I would feel like I was with my equal. Great, great. And maybe that person is someone from your past who understands the real you before the world got to you, before a heartbreak, before a divorce, a sickness, fame, whatever it might be. It really can be so comforting to go back to people who just knew us when. We need that from friends, right? So it stands to reason you would jive with someone if it was romantic. I've said before that I got back together with my first love, my boyfriend from high school and college, who I lost my virginity to. We got back together when I was 25. We went to Belize together. He ended up getting super coked out and beating the shit out of me one night. So that didn't end well. But I'm saying this because until that happened, I was like, wow, what an amazing story this would be. And here we must talk about the cocktail party moment. The cocktail party moment is one of the most toxic things that we can do to ourselves. You know this. You know what the cocktail party moment is. You might not call it this. But when he and I were getting back together, I would picture us at a cocktail party. And I was on his arm and I've got a martini, not a Jimmy John's iced tea. And people are like, oh, how did you meet? And I'm like, oh, well, we were actually high school sweethearts. And then we lost touch for years and we just reconnected and here we are. It was like the story. The story would be so charming and so adorable. It wouldn't be, we met on Tinder. That's like, wah, wah. It's fine to meet someone on Tinder. I've met plenty of boyfriends on Tinder. It's fine. But it doesn't have that mythology of the cocktail party moment, right? Even the stories I've told you. One of the first things I said in this video? My mom's best friend just remarried her first husband. That's the cocktail party moment. Now, maybe Miss Sherry and her husband are not going to be meant to be. But we lose sight of that. I think they are. They're super cute together. But we lose sight of that because we're too focused on the cocktail party moment. And I know that's where Jennifer Lopez is right now. And after 17 years, we found our way back to one another. That's all well and good if it's truly the healthy thing. That's fine if you are with this person because, hey, they know the real you. They're a memory keeper. They're a historian. They're going to hold your ass accountable and say, hey, why are you vaping? Don't do that. That's not you. You were the good girl in high school, and I know you still are. You're a good girl and you know it. There's a reason that song was so popular. You're a good girl and you know it. It's like, do you see me? That is an especially alluring thing for us women to hear because sometimes either we don't know who we are, and for someone to say, no, I do know who you are, we're like, really? We're just caught in this tractor beam. You know who I am? That means I don't have to figure it out. Can you just tell me? That would be great. That can be very dangerous. Or we have just had to be so many different people that if someone can hone in on either our shadow self, right? The part of ourself that we either can't or will not amplify, or we try and no one listens, or sometimes our shadow self is simply our nascent self. It's our previous self. It's who we were in elementary school, middle school, high school, before the world came crashing down, before we had to get so spiky. And I keep friends from those times in my life because they remind me, even if I don't want to know. They're like, what are you doing acting too cool for school? You wore orange pants and rainbow shoelaces, bitch. I did. And I'm not talking like when I was 8. I'm talking when I was 17. When I was such a dork. But I was prom queen, so it doesn't matter. So it's good to have people around who can remind you. Only you can know, are you doing this for the right reasons or the wrong reasons? So let's say you've gone through this and you're like, no, I think this is the right reasons. He's just always been on my mind and I see him now on Facebook and Instagram. Like, he's really evolved into a cool dude, but I can tell that he's still like the same like dorky Ben that I loved, whatever. Okay, reach out. I never say this. If you guys are in the same city, hey, oh my gosh, it'd be so good to see you. Next time you're coming through Montana with Jennifer Lopez, come hit me up or whatever, right? And because there's enough friendship there that you can kind of say this and it doesn't come off creepy and see where things go. But always check in with yourself and be like, am I attracted to this person sitting in front of me? If we met for the first time today, would I be into this? Or is this nostalgia preying on my emotions? Am I perhaps at a low point in my life right now where the idea of being with someone from my past feels warm and comforting? A little of that is good. Too much of it is unhealthy, right? Because again, you're not dating the present, you're dating the past. And you will never create a future if you're dating the past. These do not walk hand in hand. Because you know what? It's a two-way street. You don't want him being like, well, sorry, you were slutty Jen in high school and you're like always slutty Jen who like shoplifted Wet n Wild nail polish. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm a district attorney. It's like, nah, you're slutty Jen who shoplifts. You don't want to be around someone who has locked you into a category. And guys can do this because they're stupid and they're very black and white thinkers. She's a good girl or she's a slut. She's a jock or she's a princess. Like that, you can't be both, right? You can't be both. So if you are reaching out to someone who has a very rigid idea of who you are, this is not the man for you. This is not the man for anyone. Throw his ass back. So see where it goes. We are, after all, tribes people, right? And when we reconnect with part of our tribe, like our nascent, am I not saying that right? Tribe from when we were younger, it can be very, very deeply comforting. But you don't want it to be so stifling, like a weighted blanket, that you don't have room to grow and change. So see where it goes, give it a shot. And like I said, remember, life is so long. You just never know. So try not to burn bridges. But if you do, may the bridges you burn light the way. I'll see you later, Shalligators. Mwah!